Joining us now is Murad Awouda. He is the president and CEO of the New York Immigration Coalition, which is working with Dylan's legal team. Murad, so Dylan was detained by ICE just this week. Do you know his situation right now, where he's being detained and what he's facing in that detention? And has his family had any contact with him?
He's spoken to his family, and I think what he has been facing is something that's similarly happening to tens of thousands of other immigrants in this moment. Dylan was a high school student here in New York City, working part-time to help his family and continuing to try to get his education. Dylan has been moved several times already, so it's been incredibly difficult for his legal team to even get access to him.
What do you mean? Where's he being moved?
He's been moved several times. The last I heard, he was in Virginia, in a detention facility there. And I think for us as as a nation, we need to be asking the question, what is happening to the rule of law? Dylan entered the United States with permission. He was legally seeking his right to asylum in this country. And Department of Homeland Security and ICE continue to play these games where people are showing up to court, which they're supposed to, and he was doing the right thing. He went to court and they dismissed his case. And it was kind of a catch-22 situation for him where the dismissal ended up being a reason why ICE could re-detain him and then put him in expedited removal. And we believe he's not even eligible to be in expedited removal because he was allowed into the United States.
Can you explain that a little bit more? What brought his family to the U.S. and what was the process of him trying to claim asylum? You said he had permission.
Yeah, his mother and siblings came before him. And when he came into the United States, he had permission. He entered through the CBP One app. So that was an appointment where he would get paroled into the country.
So he was accepted. He had to apply.
Yes.
He was accepted to then have his case go through the immigration process.
And he has multiple immigration relief options ahead of him, and he had applied for them. And when he was going through the process, ICE asked the judge to dismiss his case in the courtroom, and the judge acquiesced and said, the case has been dismissed. He was not with a lawyer at the time when this happened, which was a routine, immigration court hearing. And then immediately after, ICE detained him and arrested him and then started moving him around so that no one can know where he was.
You talked about how this is happening not just to Dylan, but to potentially thousands of other people. And Dan Goldman, another Congress member, was on our air earlier this week. I think last night he shared these pictures of what he said were ICE agents apprehending migrants at immigration court. Listen to what he said about it.
It goes against everything that the Trump administration has said. These are the opposite of, quote, murderers and child rapists. Mm-hmm. These are people who are following the process. They're going through the legal process. They're not criminals. They're not violent. They are actually trying to do the right thing.
Trying to do the right thing, going through the process, playing by the rules. Why do you think they're being targeted?
I think that the Trump administration has one clear agenda that they're trying to deliver on, and it's their horrible and horrific mass deportation agenda. So they're going to continue to be, flagrant when it comes to following the law. We've seen ICE do this time and again. Just this past week, we've seen dozens of people here in New York, not just in New York City courthouses, but in Buffalo and across this country. People are being detained in a similar fashion to Dylan, and even those who aren't even having their cases dismissed, ICE is picking them up immediately after stepping outside the courtroom. And, Congressman Dan Goldman was at USC 26 Federal Plaza, where USCIS is in the immigration court yesterday. And what you ended up seeing was, and from his recording, you see that he's trying to have a conversation with all these ICE agents who are in plain clothes, looking for people to detain as if they're undermining the rule of law in this moment, because if you don't show up to immigration court, then you're going to be ordered removed. And if you show up to immigration court, they're going to arrest you now. And that's the really difficult part. And the calls that we've been getting from people is, should I go to my immigration court hearing?
Right. What's your advice to them?
We believe that they should, first and foremost, make sure that they have an attorney. And in the state of New York, we have an amazing program that we help run through the Office of New Americans to provide people with immigration legal support. It's not enough, but it's something where people can get immigration legal consultations at the very least. They should speak to an immigration attorney before going, and then making sure that they can attain an immigration attorney to help them navigate this case. Because even people showing up with lawyers, they're getting detained in this moment. And we want people to follow the rules. And sometimes that may end up being that you get detained.
And you talked about Dylan, who's a high school student, not being there with an attorney. I mean, what does a high school student know about how to handle, a court proceeding? We showed the video of the protests that were happening here in New York City about Dylan's case. Does that bring you any sense of comfort, or is it heartening to see that people are speaking out and they're not just accepting this as sort of the new status quo?
Yeah, yesterday we were proud to organize that rally at the Department of Education here in New York City. Hundreds of people, as you see in the footage, came out to demand his release. It's heartening to see New Yorkers step up in this moment to continue to fight for each other. But what we need is every level of government to step up. We need the city of New York to invest in immigration legal services. We need the state of New York to pass the New York for All Act, which would prohibit the collusion of family separation and gutting our communities. And we need our federal representatives to fight back. We need more people stepping into their power in this moment so that we can continue to protect our communities.
Murad Awadra, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.